My name is Kayla Snyder. I am the Senior Programs Manager with the Michigan Green Building Collaborative. If you are unfamiliar with our organization, it could be because we recently changed our name. We are formerly known as the U.S. Green Building Council of West Michigan. We are still part of the USGBC community, but we changed our name to better reflect our statewide reach that we have. So we're still here in Grand Rapids, the majority of us, but we're doing work in Lansing now. We're doing more work in Royal Oak, and we also have a statewide energy efficiency competition called the Michigan Battle of the Buildings that we've had for over 10 years now. So we're working around the state, and we wanted to better reflect that. And today, this webinar series is in partnership with Mass Timber at MSU. So we have Sandra Lupian with us, Director of Mass Timber at MSU. She will be our moderator today. So I do get to hand it over to her in just a little bit. And this all came about because Sandra so graciously was our keynote speaker at the annual Party and Leadership Awards ceremony that we have every year. This was in December, where Sandra talked about mass timber, what it is, the state of mass timber in the state of Michigan, and we wanted to do a deeper dive into some of those projects and, give you the ins and outs of it and what the construction process looks like and the supply chain and how do you get the timber there. And so we've been doing some deeper dives into buildings in Michigan, and this is the third one. So today we are talking about the DNR's Mass Timber Center in Newberry and Michigan Red Pine's role in this building. So we have a ton of great panelists here with us today. I'm going to let Sandra introduce all of them in a little bit, and I just have a couple slides to run through real quick. So our next events, I want to say event because it's the same event, just multiple times. We are going to be in Grand Rapids, Detroit, Lansing in July, talking about the new Michigan energy codes. So in February, we did a webinar with Eric DeVries from E3M Solutions. So you can find that webinar as well as the other mass timber webinars on our YouTube channel. And I know Allie, our communications manager, is in the chat sending links. So you'll have all of those. We did a webinar with Eric in February to kind of give a high-level overview of what the changes are in the energy code. But this is going to be an in-person deep dive. So they'll all be from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. with the session starting more so around 9 a.m. Lunch will be included. There's breaks. Each session on mechanical, functional performance testing, and electrical will be about 75 minutes long. So it's a great time to get your questions answered about any or all of those sections. If you are a member of ours, thank you so much for your support. We can't do this work without you. If you are considering becoming a member, you can scan the QR code here, or I'm sure Allie again is putting a link in the chat. We work with our members all the time on new tools and resources. We ask for feedback on things like the new website we just developed, and developing our own tools and resources to help building owners reduce emissions and reduce energy usage and costs in their building. So we really value our members and we would love to have you join. And a huge thank you to our Platinum supporters, Train, Hedrick, Ignite, and the U.S. Green Building Council, and to our visionary supporters, DTE, Consumers Energy, Eagle, the Lansing Board of Water and Light, and the Wegge Foundation. Again, without the support of all of these organizations, we would not be here today. And so we really like to extend our gratitude. And with that, I get to turn it over to Sandra to talk a little bit more about our panelists and kick off the webinar for us today.
All right, thanks so much, Kayla, and hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the third in this webinar series. I want to start off by thanking Kayla and the Michigan Green Building Collaborative for inviting us to collaborate on this series. I am just really excited that my GBC's involvement and interest in mass timber is opening doors to mass timber information to some new to our program's audiences. And I do want to invite anyone here who isn't already plugged into Mass Timber at MSU's resources to connect with me after this conversation. So The award-winning project we're here to talk about today, the Department of Natural Resources Community Services Building in Newberry in the Upper Peninsula, may be a smaller mass timber building in terms of square feet, but it is actually a giant when it comes to mass timber firsts in Michigan. So I can't wait for you to hear from our panelists about how the building is having a big influence and is a real testament to Michigan DNR's mass timber leadership. There's an endorsement for the building in the chat. That's great. I want to start off though by walking through a few slides. So Kayla, if you can allow me to transition to sharing my screen, that would be great. Thank you very much. And let me get these slides up for you. Here it is. It always ends up hiding in there. You know, you're like, where is that slide deck? Great. Okay. Do you see slides?
Yes.
Kayla? Okay, great. So I want to first start out by talking to you about mass timber at MSU. So our program, it's a collaboration under the umbrella of the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources at Michigan State University, and it's across the Department of Forestry, the School of Planning, Design, and Construction, and MSU Extension. So kind of what we do as a land-grant university in general is we mobilize research, we mobilize teaching, and we mobilize extension, which is stakeholder engagement and outreach. We do all those things and help think about policy to help advance sustainable mass timber construction and manufacture, first here in Michigan, but also the Great Lakes region and beyond. Just real quick, when we talk about mass timber, for those of you who are new to it, we're using an umbrella term for a variety of really big engineered wood building construction materials. Mostly we're talking about using them in larger buildings in ways that we have not typically been able to use wood in large buildings before. So the keywords there are engineered and really big. So think about that when you're thinking about mass timber. Just a few types: glue laminated timber. These are columns and beams made by putting together layers of dimensional lumber. And you know, there's adhesive between each layer. They're pressed in a hydraulic press. Lots of air removed, and they're very, very stiff and very strong. And that's the case with all of our mass timber types. Cross-laminated timber, these are gigantic panels, and similar to glue lam, it's layers of dimensional lumber with adhesive, etc. But here, each layer is in the opposite direction of the one next to it. So you have a panel that's strong in more than one direction. This is, and this type of panel can really help provide the lateral resistance in a building, the property that makes the building not fall down in the wind. And this is the thing that we haven't been able to do with wood in big buildings before. These panels are typically used in collaboration with glue laminated timber, other types of mass timber, and other types of construction materials as well. And then here's just a few more types of mass timber. I'm not going to go through these in depth, but just know that mass timber is an umbrella term for a bunch of different products, and glue lam and cross-laminated timber are the most popular of them, and they're the types of mass timber that were used in the building that we're going to talk about today. Why do we care about mass timber? Why are we excited about it? Well, it can enable us to build buildings more sustainably, right? Wood is a renewable resource. When we use it, we plant more trees, and those trees absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. They convert it to carbon, they store it, and then wood continues to store carbon when it's made into building materials and buildings. So this is a way that we can reduce the carbon footprints of our buildings through the materials that we choose. So, you know, thinking about my GBC, this works really well in collaboration with strategies to reduce operational carbon in buildings, so we can get even farther. We can improve the efficiency of construction, right? And just in a nutshell, mass timber is usually like a prefabricated kit of parts. So when it comes to your building site, and the guys who built the building are going to talk about this, you can achieve efficiencies when you're building the building. Plus, you also don't typically need to put as many fire protective coatings or fire protection materials on top of your mass timber. And it's so pretty, you don't want to cover it with aesthetic finishes either. We can certainly enhance the beauty and quality of buildings. There's a term called biophilia. This is the term that refers to the benefits that humans experience when they occupy buildings that include exposed natural materials, especially wood. And we see improved sense of well-being, improved mental health, and even improved productivity. So good reasons to build with wood. We can create new types of jobs, both in manufacturing, forestry, construction. And of course, we can, by creating a value-added, large-scale forest product, we can create new ways and new incentives to support healthy, resilient forests, both by creating revenue to reinvest in forests, and helping create reasons that forests should stay forests and not be converted to other less beneficial uses. Mass Timber at MSU is working to foster a mass timber ecosystem for all of these reasons. We talked a couple of webinars ago about our STEM teaching and learning facility on the MSU campus. We leverage this mass timber building as a learning laboratory for anybody who wants to learn about mass timber. So if you want to tour our building, bring a group through, learn about mass timber, you should let me know. We operate the Michigan Mass Timber Community of Practice, which is a quarterly virtual peer learning community for Michiganders who are engaged in or interested in mass timber. We host events, we take people to events, always looking for opportunities to bring information to people and bring people to information. And then we have a robust research portfolio and are developing curriculum at a variety of different levels to advance mass timber. And it's working, right? In collaboration with everybody who's working on mass timber in Michigan, we're seeing significant momentum. We now have more than 65 projects that are either completed or in the pipeline across the state. Look at where they are on the map. They're not just in the cities, they're in suburbs, they're in small towns, they're in the lower peninsula, they're in the upper peninsula, they're everywhere. And all different types of buildings. So I think we're really seeing that people are feeling inspired about mass timber and seeing something for themselves and benefits for their communities by using these materials. Here's information about how to join the Michigan Mass Timber Community of Practice, which I just mentioned. So snap that QR code if you want to join. I'll leave it there for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then this is how you contact me if you want to learn more about mass timber and join our Mass Timber at MSU community. So with that, I'm going to start transitioning over to talking about, or to introducing our panelists so they can talk about the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Community Services Building in Newberry, which this week on Tuesday night just won an Engineering Society of Detroit Design and Construction Award. This ceremony happened in the Detroit area and was really great to celebrate the success of this project. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now and make our transition here in a good way so we can start hearing from our panelists. So, now, just without further ado, I want to provide an overview of who's presenting today. We're going to hear from Michelle Crook, who is an engineer with the Department of Natural Resources, Anna Anderson, the architect with Lord X. Sargent, who designed this project, Russ Vaughan, a mass timber supplier with Vaughan Timbers, Jason Cook, who's the construction site superintendent with Wallbridge, and Nate Gobble, who's with the mass timber installer on this project, Clark Contracting Services. So we're going to hear from them all in turn, and we're going to start out with our friend Michelle Crook with Michigan Department of Natural Resources. And Michelle, I invite you to take it away. Tell us what happened from the beginning.
Okay, thank you very much, Sandra. I am Michelle Crook. I'm the senior project engineer for Michigan DNR, and luckily got to be involved in this project, which was one of the many exciting ones I've got to be involved in the last 10 years at DNR. And I apologize if I am not a forester, but I'm going to talk about some of those aspects of it. Michigan has 20 million acres of forest land. 4 million acres of that is state forest land managed by DNR for a variety of activities, from timber production to conservation, wildlife habitat, and recreational activities. Michigan has the largest state managed forest in the US outside of Alaska. And we certify our state forests under both the Sustainable Forest Initiative Forest Management Standard and the Forest Stewardship Council Forest Management Standard. Hopefully I got both of those correct. They're kind of a mouthful. Our forest industry supports 88,000 direct and indirect jobs and brings in 26 billion in total sales. And so one of DNR's goals is to continue to support this industry and help grow this industry. We have 307 primary mills, mainly in the Upper Peninsula and Northern Lower Peninsula. And our forest cover consists of 70% hardwood and 30% softwoods. Next slide, please, Kayla. So several years ago, we decided that we wanted to build a new customer service center in Newberry. That was the last location where we were renting a building, and our building lease was about up, and it wasn't a very great building, so we wanted to find something new. And so we began looking at what we could build that would meet our department needs as well as the community needs. Next slide, please. One of the things we wanted to focus on was something that would also benefit the community. The Duck Lake Fire, for those who might not be familiar, this happened in Newberry in 2012. It was the third worst forest fire in Michigan since 1881. We had to bring in firefighters from Canada, all over Michigan, other states, and there was no space in the area to gather everybody for all the emergency management purposes we need. So that was one of the goals when we built the building, was to make sure we had some sort of community center for emergency events, for the community to use for a variety of purposes. So that was an important aspect of this building, as well as also providing an area for visitors to stop and learn about mass timber, learn about all the other things DNR offers, learn about wildlife. You know, Newberry is a very small town, but we get a lot of visitors through there. We got Tequamanon Falls, significant number of trails that go through there. So you get the number of visitors that go through Newberry every year is very large. So it's a great hub to have this at. Next slide, please. So we began working on this concept when Governor Whitmer released the My Healthy Climate Plan, which was a state strategy to achieve net zero carbon by 2050. It called for using low carbon building materials like mass timber for residential and commercial buildings. So based on this, and with our goal to support the timber industry, we pushed to make Newberry entirely from mass timber. We see mass timber production as a key economic development opportunity that benefits Michiganders in cities and suburbs and rural communities across the state. And so we ended up with a just over 10,000 square foot office space, along with community center in the space and the lobby area, which, well, we had bigger plans initially. We did end up going to this size, but it's suited our needs well. Next slide, please. Being part of state government and given all of our requirements for contracting and projects, innovating and new technologies are not always easy to implement. We did not have a mass timber supplier in Michigan, which was one of the hurdles. We also started building right during COVID, when prices began to skyrocket and labor was difficult to find, and we were in the Upper Peninsula, which was another hurdle. And then we decided to take on the added effort of utilizing Michigan lumber for some of the mass timber components. We felt this was really important. We wanted to be one of the first buildings to use Michigan sourced material and to be able to demonstrate what was possible with Michigan wood. Opening the door and hopefully opening the doors for mass timber manufacture in Michigan. So we selected red pine to do this. Why did we select red pine? There's a variety of reasons, but based on some discussions with MSU, we knew we needed to focus on softwoods for the project, and red pine emerged as the best candidate. It's our fourth most common tree species in Michigan. We have a lot of planted stands of red pine as well as native stands. It recovers naturally after forest fires and is one of our fastest growing trees. And Anna will get into more about why it was a good choice based on the technical aspects of that. But so far we've been very happy with the outcomes, and we see a lot of growth in this area. And with that, I'll pass it to Anna.
Thanks so much, Michelle. That was an excellent introduction as to the why of DNR's decision to use mass timber, and then also to choose red pine as the species. Anna, I'm just going to continue to talk while you're pulling up your slides here. just gonna riff. But I think so important. And also just one of the things I wanted to point out here is that this project, as you mentioned, was a long planning process, Michelle, and it did go through a lot of different cycles where the cost of construction across the market were just climbing and climbing. And I know the project saw some setbacks, but not specifically related to the costs of mass timber per se, but just the cost of construction overall.
Yes, I was actually having that conversation with somebody the other day. I didn't find the mass timber costs, those I found very reasonable, but it was just concrete costs were really high, paint costs were really high. Some of those were double and triple what we were expecting.
Yeah, and I bet that's felt by everybody who's trying to build buildings, who's on this webinar right now. Great, thanks so much. All right, let's transition over to you, Anna Anderson, architect with Lordak Sargent, who led the design of this beautiful building.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. I'm really happy to present and share the design story of this building. So some of the things Michelle already mentioned, you know, that the Michigan Department of Natural Resources needed to build new customer service, right? They needed an architect. We were the architect on the project. And this is the picture of the beautiful finished building. I think the picture was taken in April. These are our collaborators, all contributors to this beautiful outcome. So thank you all. So we are Lordak Sargent, just a little bit of our office. We have 7 office locations, and one of the location in Michigan is our Detroit downtown location here. We are just kind of going back to it. We are very sustainable firm. I just want to mention this. We have over 110 LEED certified buildings, and I think 7 living building challenge buildings right now in planning and design. And this is actually a location of our current office. We're located in a Globe building downtown Detroit. This 6-story used to be a tobacco factory building built in 1888. And I did a little bit research in regards to where the wood came from and what the species were, right? So there was the typical slow burning mill construction when they built industrial buildings in 19th century. And what I found that this possibly at the time they were using white pine or eastern white oak for that type of construction. So Newberry, the project is located in Newberry, Michelle was mentioning here, but we're in Detroit. So we travel there every month, 365 miles north, 5.5 hours driving time. I was really happy to go there. Let me just maybe go to the next slide. Here. So this is a building the site location, located in real near the existing actually DNR office. There were existing built buildings already at the site. And the purpose, the DNR had the need to locate a building really visible from the M23, and M23 is a state highway. Actually, that building is on the way to Taquamanon Falls. So it's very visible from the road when you're driving by. Even Jason was mentioning a few times that sometimes people were driving by and then turning back because they wanted to look what the building was, and the purpose was to placing at the site at that particular exposure that will kind of engage people to stop by and engage the curiosity. Some of the things Michelle already mentioned, this I'm not going to be redundant here. Maybe I will more talk about just the whole space here. So here, when you look at this image here, there are mostly office buildings here, kind of divided that use area into multi-purpose room, lobby and display area where there will be the DNR will have the natural regional resources showcasing there. And I think we also going to showcase the story of the building, the mass timber where it came from, as well. I think that all the work that Michigan Tech is doing in regards to investigating hardwood for CLT production. As you can see here in this isometric view, in the building construction, we used 5-ply CLT for roof decking, which you can see here in a cut, and 3-ply exterior walls of red pine for the building perimeter. And the whole structure is a post and beam structure with glulam Douglas fir. And the reason why we wanted to use red pine everywhere throughout the building. And actually, initially, when our structural engineer worked on the project, I think in the beginning our roof was a 3-ply roof decking for that project, but because of the design values and performance values of red pine, we needed a little bit more material for this became 5-ply. So it just wasn't very efficient to use red pine for the columns and beam for this project. That will be not cost effective and really large. I just want to mention a little bit about the exterior of the building. It's on the exterior of the building we used thermally modified cladding. Ash, which you can see that actually the product will age with time. So we were trying to do a few renderings here to kind of showcase the changing and evolving of the building, and also connecting to more the local and vernacular architecture in the area. This is a little bit of a process, and Michelle was mentioning this before. I'm not going to talk long about this, but the project is supposed to be bigger. There's supposed to be big storage building behind when DNR would use for the equipment. The building altogether is supposed to be 30,000 square feet building. It's just economically didn't pay out at the time. We're going through pandemic and some other issues as well. So I just wanted to show here that we did some massing studies, and we play with different structure and different roof shapes. So this was a part of the customer service center connected with the locker rooms, the storage building, approximately 15,000 square feet. Other one, too, was 15,000, ended up to be around, I think, 10,600 square feet building here. And these are also the elderly studies of the little shrunken building showing field offices, customer service offices, wildlife and fishery center, multi-purpose room, and the lobby and the display area. A little bit more of the early renderings, just playing with the structure, and the main intent was actually this southwest corner here, and we're going to see this in the further images too. Just kind of the invitation to enter the building and to see the structure throughout the glazing. Michelle mentioned this also. This is a project showcasing one of the Michigan top industry forestry and timber products. And this is the story, how we got there. So we had to find the trees in Michigan, find a sawmill, and we had to find manufacturer. So Michigan State University Forestry Department School of Planning, Design, and Construction has done extensive study on Michigan's tree species and the viability of using the species in the construction. And that was the reason, based on the study, they work with our design team to select red pine for the project. And as you can see here, the half of the state is forested. And Michigan has diverse forest types. I think, Michelle, you mentioned a little bit different numbers here. So I think they were close. But red pine is 5% of the mixed species types. Red pine grows in eastern Upper Peninsula, western Upper Peninsula, and northern Lower Peninsula. And here's, I just want to put a couple images how it's actually the tree looks like, and average height is 45 to 75 feet at 50 years of age, and was mostly used for pulpwood, cabin logs, saw logs, and veneers and pilings. This is just an image showing, just for a reminder how to, maybe Russ will touch on this later too, how, actually the lumber quality impacts the log quality impacts the efficiency of a timber. So National Design Specification from American Wood Council. So this is the process of certification, and I think that maybe Russ Wagen will touch on this as well a little bit more. Red pine belongs to lumber species in eastern softwoods, and is located in the spruce pine fir, some lumber species combination. And then we have to look at the design reference design values for visually graded dimensional lumber for spruce pine fir south. And then mass timber, look into mass timber manufacturing standards, and so it relates to NC APA PRG 320 for standard for performance cross-laminated timbers. So this is the path of achieving the locally sourced timber. We visited, part of the team visited Beware Lumber, which I'm trying to remember the number. I think was 260,000 board feet were transported from Beware Lumber to Colville, Washington, where supplier was selected, manufacturer Wagen Timbers. We visited Russ's Forest and had a beautiful tour there, and also visited factory and were part of design team that Michigan State University, and contractor were part of experiencing the whole certification process at the facility. Here's our team, and this is a picture of the 3-ply, a certified red pine panel, and the 5-ply roof red pine panel. Some few images from the construction. And then you can notice the significant difference of the red pine showing the knots in the wood, which contrasting with the dark fir of beams and columns. I think this image is from January this year. An interior image showcasing the display area. This is multi-purpose room. You can see the connection, indoor, outdoor, the beautiful trees beyond. This is again the detail in the lobby and display area. And another view of the building. I think the picture, this one was taken actually in April, but during a snowstorm. And I really like this image, which I mentioned before, is on the route M123, and it's very well surrounded by the local landscape. And we did with our team did the study in regards to carbon footprint, and it's I can go back. And this study showed 89% reduction of the carbon footprint comparing to using structural steel versus timber as used in our project. I think that's all I had.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anna. It is indeed a beautiful building, and I think, you know, obviously something to be very proud of from a design perspective. Russ, as you're getting your slides up, I'll share a couple of things. I just think this building is so striking, right? Because as Michelle mentioned earlier, Newberry is a pretty small community, but this beautiful building just like grows right out of the landscape and makes an impression like tall trees that are part of a forest. I think that's the impression that it gives. I'm sure that was intentional. As you're coming across it on is it M43, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
120.
I'm sorry?
I think it's 123, right?
What M43 is not that. I'm wrong. Yes. That's down here. But yes, it's so incredible in the landscape there. And hopefully when people are going through Newberry or in Newberry, they can make sure to swing by and take a look at it. It is gorgeous. So now we're going to hear from Russ Vaughan with Vaughan Timbers, which is the supplier of the cross-laminated timber panels and the glue lam on this project. And Russ is going to talk us through a little bit about how a certification process like this looks on the part of the manufacturer and the collaborators. Thanks for being here.
Great. Thanks for having me. It's always great to be part of a project like this and appreciate being here. So Vaughan Timbers, as Anna and Sandra talked about, we are in Northeast Washington State. A lot of people, confuse us with Seattle, but it's probably like the UP and Detroit. There's a large state and very different. We come from an area where we're impacted by wildfires, and we have forests that may be a little bit different than in Michigan, but I think we're starting to have an awakening as to what it takes to make forests healthy, in particular our federal forests. In the West, we have far more forests that are impacted by wildfire, and we have far more federal forests. And we've been working hard to try to create awareness on what those forests need and the benefit of thinning them. And this shows you what the forest looks like after we do a treatment. This is in Northeast Washington. And it's really not that complicated. We want to create natural resilient forests, and we want to use the products that come from getting there in order to make our mass timber and other wood products. And that, to me, I think is a beautiful thing. I'll just share some slides here and like who we are and how we got here. This one I like because it kind of shows you the life cycle after it leaves the forest. So you've got the portal crane that lifts a truckload of logs at the Vaughan Brothers Mill in Colville. That's just right next to where our CLT plant is. And my family's been in the forest products industry I'm fourth generation. So we've been doing this for a long time and trying to perfect how to get the most from our forests. So you can see the logs are very small. Anna referenced the efficiency, and now the technology has really moved from large logs and old growth to small logs and thinning. And so we take a log, typically the size of a steering wheel in a car, and cut boards out of that in a stack and do it very effectively and efficiently. And that's how most of the forest industry operates throughout North America now. So the small logs then goes into rough lumber, and then at the bottom you see our CLT panel on the left and the glue lam beam on the right. And we have a very unique press in Colville that allows us to do both through the same press. It does have its limitations in terms of size, so that challenge we overcame in this project by connecting two 4-foot panels and delivering them as an 8-foot panel into the Newberry building. And it turned out great, and it was awesome. But also, as mentioned, there were challenges with certification because nobody had used red pine specifically in the US from Michigan as a part of this. And so we had to do a confirmation that the red pine did fit and meet the standards for SPF South. And so this project was great because we got to do that step in conjunction with building the building. And these certifications are very costly, and they consume a lot of time in the factory and a lot of lumber. So, fortunately now we've got that hurdle behind us. So now we can do projects in the future in Michigan with Michigan wood much more effectively. And there's a lot of differences in the species. You talked about favorite trees in the beginning. My favorite tree is a Western larch, and it's unique because it's a deciduous softwood. So it's a deciduous evergreen. And it's actually, if you ever heard the term fir larch or Doug fir larch, they actually go together in a species group. But larch is a very unique tree. And there is some eastern larch as you get further east as well, but it's a very unique tree. So I just wanted to put that point in there. And I've spent a lot of time in forests around the country. The picture here is our factory building. It's relatively small as it pertains to large factories that you would see mass timber be made of. We're about, with the office, about 70,000 square feet. I think it's important to point out that we didn't just do this project so we could deliver a project to Michigan. We did this to prove that Michigan could source material for the mass timber industry. And as the market grows, we're already in talks with a number of different players there too, including many that were part of this project, to bring mass timber manufacturing to Michigan. And so we're in the early stages of that. So, and Anna also talked about something that I would like to take a step in that direction, and that is the use of red pine and these other species in Michigan for glulam. We've been very lazy in North America with our standards, in particular on glulam. There was no innovation for about 40 years until the mass timber industry took hold in the United States and Canada. And so we rested on the laurels of very strong Douglas fir, and that's kind of the basis of design of most things glulam in the US. And I want to change that because there's no reason that red pine can work for CLT yet not work for glulam. So we're going to fix that, and we're going to kind of change the game with that. I want to shift to talking about construction and how we as a manufacturer actually play a role in the architecture, engineering, and construction portion of the project. We like to get involved very early, provide a design assist in the beginning to optimize the project for mass timber. And part of it is our Timber Sequence Pro. It's a software solution that we've created. As you can see the icons on the bottom, we actually create a cartoon image, if you will, of these projects going together in sequence. And then we deliver the truckloads in sequence. So Jason and Nate may talk about that as they go through their portion. But we don't use a laydown yard. Most projects use a yard to put materials in, and then the contractor goes and digs through the materials and delivers them as per the drawings. We actually complete a process called nesting that includes our shop drawings for every piece of the project. And then we use a software to articulate when that's delivered, how it's handled, so on and so forth. And we even add some additional features to the product, which are, we do custom hardware installation in the factory. So it's not as simple as Legos, but these are like large wooden Legos. They will go together in a sequence. You follow the instructions that are provided, you collaborate with us, you know what's happening, and the building goes together very smoothly. I want to show a few just images of projects we've done so you can see there's a broader scope here than just one particular building type. This is a home that we did about 30 minutes from our factory. It's a lake place. It's if you were to come to the Little Ponderay Lakes, which is just outside of Colville, besides it being a little bit more mountainous, it's very much like Michigan, and it's very like it's lake country. So there's a lot of little lakes and some larger lakes. And so this is sitting on the bank of one of our lakes. And you can see there, we took a 7-ply CLT panel and we cut a set of stairs. And that's kind of been their design focal point for this house. But a lot of people think of timber as being kind of old and, tired and dark. But you can see here, the homeowners, this is the same project. The stairs are just, the stairway comes up just to your right there. But we used a whitewash finish on the glulam and CLT in this house. I'd also say this house was really cool because it took, we delivered this in January. We started on a Monday and the homeowner was sitting on her deck on Saturday. And we get about, at this location, it snowed twice during the week. And there's about, from Christmas into May, I would say there's about 3 to 4 feet of snow sitting at this elevation in the winter. So it wasn't like an easy construction time. We also do large, beautiful urban buildings. This is in Brooklyn, New York. It's called Timber House. We did this a number of years ago. It looks like a brownstone building you'd see in an urban area. This one's 7 stories, and it's just beautiful, and people love it. And the other part about it, that sequencing that we do in an urban environment, we had to call in the crane for every load that came in of mass timber. And so we would stage a load in New Jersey, and then they would say, okay, the crane's going to be here at 9 a.m. on Wednesday, and we would have whatever they had set up time. We'd have the truck there at 9:45, lifting panels, and then away it went. And I visited the site during construction, and the neighbors were sitting out on their porch steps across the street, and we had to talk to some of them, and they're like, are you involved with this? It's amazing. There's like no sound. So if we're not paying attention, a truck shows up and then another floor goes up. And so there's a lot of benefits beyond just using wood for the way we construct these buildings. Here's another building that we did. This is at a ski resort in North Idaho called Schweitzer Mountain Resort. It's very kind of European, Austrian theme, but heavy timber. And it's beautiful. It can withstand large snow loads, and it just really fits with the environment. We also do large industrial buildings. This is a 180,000 square foot industrial building. You can see up on the roof there, we did a full timber truss. Those were all custom. 80-foot spans on the left. The image, we're in the center there. That's a 100-foot span. If you look at the detail, it's pretty amazing. There's some really amazing truss design there because that span came in from bay to bay after the project was going forward. We also have some concrete in there, but those glulams are notched, if you notice, and then we have a glulam beam across the top and a crane rail going on top of that. So there's a 10-ton crane, 2 of them that ride on those rails, and it was all delivered in a custom format. And then to wrap up here, I just want to say that this is what we're trying to do, is we're trying to create healthy forests. And a few things that we do that I think are unique is we now have a path forward to offer carbon credits with our product that comes out. So for every ton of mass timber that we create, we will have a carbon credit that we can attach to that. And if somebody's really interested in that, I can go through the methodology and introduce the team that we have there. And then also, in addition to FSC having, which we also can provide, providing the highest lead points in your building for the use of timber, we have also now got a methodology to achieve those same level of points with National Forest restoration wood. And that was a huge step, and we did with a major contractor in California. So there's many ways to get a very high value, environmentally sound building from mass timber. And here's some contact information. I'll just say the image on the left is a project we did in Vancouver, British Columbia. Nobody else would handle it. It's a Cree building. It's a concrete and glulam composite building, 9 stories, and it's at the gateway of the University of British Columbia's campus in Vancouver. So with that, I'll toss it back over to Sandra.
Wonderful, Russ. Thank you very much. That was a really insightful presentation. And if we have time, I probably have a question for you about the carbon credits, but let's see. what we have left here at the end. Otherwise, I'm going to follow up with you later. With that, let's see the slides for Jason and Nate's presentation. Jason Cook is with Wallbridge Construction as a site supervisor in Newberry building this project, and Nate Gobble with the timber installer Clark Contracting Services. So guys, how did you build this building?
Hey there, can you you got my screen? Hear me all right?
Looks
Gotcha, Jason.
great and sound perfect.
All right. So I'm Jason Cook, Assistant Project Manager with Wallbridge. We were given the honor and privilege to be the construction manager for this project. I had the privilege of seeing this building come together from the beginning to the very end, piece by piece.
And hi, everybody. I'm Nate Gobble. I'm Estimator Project Manager with Clark Contracting Services within our self-perform group. My specialty is our mass timber installations. Excited to walk you through this project, some of our key strategies and lessons learned throughout the process. We were subcontracted under Wallbridge and had the mass timber installation as well as the carpentry scope. In total, I believe we had approximately 9,300 man hours dedicated to the completion of this beautiful building. And Jason, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, so a quick little plug on Wallbridge here, just gives everybody some background on us. We are a top 50 contractor in the United States, over 100 years old, do about $6 billion in annual sales. We work in the United States as well as Mexico and Canada. Headquarters is in Detroit, but we also have an office in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which I work out of. Our typical delivery systems are construction management, design, build, general contracting. But we also offer others listed on the screen there. We do a lot of work in the automotive, manufacturing, and data center world. We also self-perform. We do design, in-house design, structural, concrete, steel erection, rigging, among other trades. It's a tradition for us to start each one of our meetings with a safety moment. So I made a little mass timber safety moment here for us. When you're working with wood, it's important to always wear gloves to protect your hands from slivers and appropriate safety glasses to protect your eyes from sawdust. We require a cut resistant level 4 glove on our job sites at all times when our trades are working with material. And our safety glasses, we also make sure everyone's wearing Z87 rated safety glasses, meaning that they meet the minimum requirements of the American National Standards Institute. And for those that don't know, safety gloves do have a little shield icon on them with a rating for their cut resistance level. So A1 being the lowest and A9 being the highest. So it's important to make sure that the gloves you're wearing are rated for the work that you're doing and the materials that you're handling. So I've got some highlights here that some of the others have already touched on as far as our milestones during the pre-construction phase of this project. The first one being that the DNR engaged Wallbridge early on while the project was still in the design phase, which was critical for us to provide feedback on constructability and details and sequencing of the actual construction of the building. Our next milestone was identifying a sawmill that we could work with to provide the Michigan feedstock to our mass timber manufacturer. And we visited several sawmills throughout the state, and we ended up working with Buer Lumber in McBain, Michigan. They're a great sawmill to work with. The next key step was engaging our mass timber fabricator, which we were partnered with Vaughan. They were a great partner for us throughout the process, very willing to step in and go through that certification process that Russ was talking about, which was the next key step there. That took some time. They actually did that certification process in conjunction with doing shop drawings for the project. And the timing actually worked out perfectly there, luckily for us. And our last key step was engaging our mass timber erector, that being Clark Contracting Services. So one of the challenges of this project was logistics. The site was located in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Vaughan's over in Colville, Washington. It's roughly 1,800 miles between the two. So it was important for us from a timing perspective of when those trucks were leaving Vaughan's shop, arriving at the site, we were unloading material and getting it installed in a efficient manner. So we didn't have trucks piled up on us and had to double handle material to unload it and then pick it again to get it back up in the air. So it was about a 4 to 6 day journey for each truck. So looking at our schedule here, it was a 13-day total erection timeline, 10 trucks. So if we look here, you can see when our first truck arrived to the job site, there was already 3 or 4 trucks on the road behind that truck. So it was very critical for us to hit those production timelines and get that material picked and into the air. Here's a little video here of a tool that Vaughan provided us to coordinate the mass timber delivery and installation sequencing. So play this really quick for you guys. So you can see it's color coded by truck here. The first truck is red, had most of the majority of the columns on it, followed by the beams and wall panels. We had the crane positioned on the back side of the building there, so we actually worked and set the remaining beams and roof panels on the back side of the building. And then we transitioned to the front side of the building, moved the crane to the front, set the rest of the wall panels, remaining beams, and CLT panels. And it wasn't quite as fast as this, but it felt like it.
Almost.
But this was a great tool. It really helped not only the construction team visualize and coordinate the installation, but the DNR, the owner's representatives, the design team could all give their feedback and input on our sequencing. Here's a picture of that Michigan red pine feedstock and Vaughan's shop over in Colville, Washington. It's rough sawn, dried to a moisture content of their specs. An image of one of the trucks delivering material to the site. So each member is individually wrapped and protected. And there's a tarp over the load when it's on the road. This is obviously with the tarp removed. And Nate, you want to talk about some of the details that we had specifically on the project?
Sure. Getting into our installation a little bit, the columns and base plates we had to be extremely precise. The anchor bolts and base plate layout had to be laser verified, as the glue lambs were fabricated with extremely tight tolerances. And with the columns being 26 foot tall, any variation or deviances from plumb were magnified. We used dowel pins at the bottom base plate to secure the connection and patch those with wood plugs to create a clean connection with minimal hardware visibility.
Yeah, you can actually see the bottom of the column is routed out, so that covers that steel base plate there. And then the concrete floor slab gets poured around that. So really, you don't really see any of the steel structure under there. And that was one of Anna's details to make, she wanted the columns to look like they were floating. So.
Yeah, and actually at the top of the columns, the column to beam connections, concealed hardware was also utilized to again create that clean aesthetic per Anna's design. Some beam members also sat in factory cut pockets within the top of the columns, giving us a flush beam to column connection, which again required those tight tolerances and careful alignment. Yeah,
and I think it's important to note too that this hardware was installed by Vaughan in their shop, so when it arrived to the site, it already has that hardware connected on it, and reduces the time in the field to attach that hardware.
And taking a look at one of our columns being set here, you can see our rigging and crew composite. We choked the column using a nylon strap with one of our carpenters up in the basket, guiding the column into place, with 2 carpenters below, aligning the column to the knife plate and securing the dowel pins. Our crane operator and riggers were in constant communication with sequencing to maintain the pace and ensure all of our crew members were on the same page. This next slide shows our columns mostly set up to where the crane could safely reach from the backside of the building. One unique challenge we faced with was actually the braces. As we mentioned before, these columns were 26 foot tall, and with no concrete pad in place, we had to reach the adjacent footings in the foundation. So we were actually used tilt-up concrete wall panel braces to maintain plumbness. I wasn't concerned over the weight of the glue lamps, but it was more used for the required reach to be able to make our columns plumb. And then here we have some of our CLT wall panels being installed around the perimeter. These panels themselves had pre-installed vapor shield membrane from Vaughan's factory, which helped protect the CLT right off the truck. Another interesting part of our CLT install was the custom rigging devices that Vaughan engineered for us. So actually the CLT panels from Vaughan's shop come out to be 4 foot wide. However, in Vaughan's factory, they mounted 2 panels together with the splice joint attached. This allowed us to pick 2 panels at once, cutting our crane picks for the CLT essentially in half. So you can see it up in the side of the building there. We're disconnecting the rigging device from the crane. Then here we have a close-up of the spline connection at one of our roof panels. As you can see, it's clean and was a game changer for our install, being able to pick 2 at once. Next, we have our crew in action setting one of the beams. You can see we have 2 guys in baskets at adjacent connection points, fitting the glue lamp snug into place. These next few slides are drone and progress shots. Here you can see the truck staging in crane position on the back side of the building, reaching out into its safe distance. Over on the right-hand side of the picture. Before here, you now see the crane move to the front of the building where we're completing the CLT roof panels. Couple just progress photos from the inside of the building.
Yeah, we did get lucky with the weather, the winter of 23.
And here we are setting the final panel. At this point, we had the building fully dried in with temporary protection at all the openings and added fan and heaters early on to maintain the humidity and moisture. Again, we had QA checks were constant, especially during the early enclosure phases. So kind of like how Jason and I were talking about, we had the building up in 3 weeks and then fully enclosed in 4.
Yep. I would like to point out the we did a 3D BIM model of the mechanical system and coordinated that with Vaughan to pre-cut all of the penetrations. You can kind of see some of them here in the roof panels for pipes and ductwork that needed to go through the roof, which saves a lot of time in the field and is also a better quality product, being able to make those cuts in their shop rather than in the field.
Then in addition to the mass timber, we had the carpentry scope, including building the exterior envelope. Here we have some progress shots showing the blank CLT wall panels on the left, right off the truck. Then in the middle, you can see the rigid insulation and beginning phases of the thermally treated wood siding that Anna mentioned. And then finally, you can see the glass fiber concrete panels on their support framing. Moving on to the interior, you can see some of our 2x stud framing. Sticking with the local sourcing theme, we bought all of our framing materials from a lumber yard less than 2 miles up the road from the project site. Additionally, something you don't see in your projects every day related to the mass timber world was a custom site-built NLT accent wall. The nail laminated panels are not structural and are meant to be an architectural piece as you enter the DNR building right behind the reception desk. And here we have a couple final shots as we wrap the project up. And I actually brought a GoPro out to take some time-lapse footage of our install. Unfortunately, a couple of the videos of the CLT install got corrupted. So if anybody is a GoPro expert, feel feel free to reach out because all the videos are sitting in storage and we'd love to figure out how to recover.
Yeah, I think that's all we got. Thank you.
Jason and Nate, great presentation, and please keep this running so everyone can just kind of see it while we talk through the rest of this. Just one thing I just want to say that I appreciate so much is how well your teams documented the project. It's so valuable for people to be able to see how the building comes together. And I love the way, Jason, that you presented the model, the little cartoon model, and then Nate, you had some photos and footage of that showed those steps in real life and how the model then ended up applying in the field. So great job explaining how all these pieces came together. And some people are putting some very supportive comments to you in the chat. Do people here have questions for our wonderful panelists who've shared with us from vision all the way to completion, how this wonderful Department of Natural Resources customer services building in Newberry, Michigan came together? Obviously something that has been said in various ways on the call, and I'll say it in the way that I say it, is that DNR taking the leadership to really insist upon Michigan wood, red pine in CLT panels in their building demonstrates DNR's leadership in this space and really wanting to see mass timber production in Michigan using Michigan wood and putting Michiganders to work. And I think by doing it this way, they effectively have de-risked this particular species for any prospective manufacturers in Michigan, possibly Vaughan, as Russ mentioned there. So really an important act of leadership on the part of DNR. Let's see, I've got a question here. What is the expected life of the building? Who can answer that for us?
Oh, wait, Anna, question.
Well, look at this one, what we're in right now.
Yeah,
Hello,
Anna's in
Mac.
her timber building.
It's, you know, it's hard to say, but I'm hoping that this building will last 100 years.
And
Why
DNR
shouldn't?
must have standards about how long buildings must last. in
Well, and
order to
the
be
other
part of
thing
the
I would say about mass timber is that it can be recycled and upcycled. And there's a whole host of buildings in Europe that have been designed to be constructed, deconstructed, moved, and rebuilt.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, like Anna showed her building that they're in Detroit. They're using that building now, but I would also say, you know, my experience in other cities are that some of the most valuable timber out there is the reclaimed timber from buildings that are, you know, beyond their useful years. So the timber typically it survives many years beyond the useful life of the building.
Yes.
So yeah, well over 100 years. And I would just say, lastly, like if you go do some research on some of the stave churches in Norway that they've documented, they're like 600 or 700 years old, and they're all in timber. So it's how you protect it.
Absolutely. Question from Joe. What was the most challenging part of the construction and how did you overcome it?
I'd probably say the timing and logistics of all that, like we talked about, the material deliveries, and you know, there's nothing ever goes perfectly. So there was a couple instances where we had to get on the horn with Anna and her team and decide how we were going to tackle an issue. And luckily the team really came together and was really collaborative, and that those solutions came quickly with a phone call. So we were able to work through that. And, you know, Nate and I were standing there directing traffic and trying to make sure that the next truck is already on the road. You know, it's a couple hours away, so we got to make sure we finish today and are ready for the next truck the next day.
Yeah, just to expand on that, I would also mention the tolerances that we mentioned. Again, kind of anything it meant to fit perfect. And so at any point there was any sort of deviation to that, it required, I guess, engineering and sign off from everybody. So any sort of time sitting without approval is crane time down, right? But thankfully we had everybody pretty active on the project and got answers quick.
Wonderful. Great. We are really close to needing to wrap up because our end time here is 11:15. I think that the presentation was rather comprehensive and therefore perhaps it's okay to wrap without asking for any more questions. I do see one final question that I'm going to answer myself. What are the next steps to getting mass timber produced in Michigan? And this is what I will say to you. We're proving that we have the demand in Michigan and the Great Lakes region and across the country to support production here. Our team at Mass Timber at MSU has conducted a supply chain analysis and demand survey that we're continuing to expand upon. So if prospective manufacturers would like us to present that to them, we are happy to do it. And we basically at this point need someone to decide to do it and make the investment to setting up mass timber production in Michigan as we continue to expand testing and certification of Michigan species. So lots of momentum here. With that, I think, Kayla, I will thank our panelists, Michelle Crook from Michigan DNR, Anna Anderson with architect Lordak Sargent, Russ Vaughan with Vaughan Timbers, and Jason Cook from Walbridge, and Nate Gobble with Clark Contracting Services. Wonderful insights, and thank you again for spending your time to share them with this audience. Kayla, back to you to roll us out.
Yes, thank you, Sandra, for being here, moderating, bringing everybody together. And thank you again to all of our panelists for being here today and sharing your insights into this beautiful building, as was stated many times in the chat. The last few things I want to mention before we close out the webinar is that this is recorded. It will be on our YouTube channel as well as the other Mass Timber webinars in this series are also on our YouTube channel. The slides will also be shared in a follow-up email. You'll get that in the next couple days because we want to be able to send you the link to the recording, the slides, and any other important information. Allie, will you please drop, I'm sure you have, but drop the link to our new website in the chat, especially the case study page too. We are trying to make our new website as robust as possible with resources and case studies. And so this summer, we are getting a new intern and I will be having her work on adding all of these webinars into case studies on our website. So we'll probably follow up with all of you as well to make sure we get all those pieces correct, but you'll have the webinar recording as well as a nice case study on our website to learn more about these projects. And then this is also a call to all of you on the webinar to share any case studies you want with us, and we will put those on our website. Again, we want to make that robust. So thank you all so much for being here today. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. It's still morning, but we're getting close. So enjoy the rest of your day. And we hope to see you soon on another event.